So when it comes to that decision, obviously Westwood's a really special place for me, having been a student here. And I've been in leadership. I've been an administrator now for, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. 8 years. And for me, I was not in a hurry to be a principal. There's some people in their career that say, I want to be a principal by the time I'm age, whatever, right? For me, I've always been about wanting to be at the right place and the right opportunities. And Westwood to me is a place that I want to stay at forever and always. And so when that opportunity came up, when Dr. Acosta left, it was the right place for me to be able to say, I can stay at Westwood, I can have an even bigger impact on this community. And so really I think the influence was just that this was the right position for me and a time that I was ready to take that on. So it's interesting, the assistant principal role and the associate principal role, they're actually pretty different. I don't know that many students really know the distinction between the two, but in the assistant principal role, you're really working a lot closer with a specific group of students and families. You have an alphabet group that you're responsible for, and so you get to form those relationships with specific families over time, and you're helping them with different facets of their educational experience, whether that's disciplinary stuff, whether it's, hey, we've got some attendance things we have to work on, or just, whatever we need to help students be successful getting through Westwood. So it's really focused on kind of that case management of students. When you move into the associate role for me is different. You don't have that caseload of students anymore, and I really was engaging in a lot of the bigger projects that impact the school as a whole. It's a lot of curriculum and instructional vision, so getting to work on planning professional development for teachers, actually presenting for teachers, really working as the right-hand person for the principal to either execute the principal's vision or to provide, ideas and say, hey, let's do this initiative. I think this would really support, our goal over here. So kind of as I've moved through those different roles, the assistant principal role is so critical because you really get that opportunity to understand how the work of the school is impacting families and kids in a real personal way. And then moving into that associate role was great because I had a lot of that natural exposure to everything Dr. Acosta was doing. I was able to really have this awesome window into the principal work, and I was able to support that work through, a lot of my own efforts in the ways that I described. Oh yeah, absolutely. And, whenever someone becomes a principal, you don't become a principal without at least being an assistant principal first. The associate principal is pretty unique. It's something that only exists on high schools. And obviously, in Round Rock ISD, we only have 5 high schools, so there's only 5 associate principals. So you think about how many schools, elementary, middle, and high school have principals. If you do the math, there's no way that everyone would funnel through being an associate principal to be a principal. But everyone has been an assistant principal before they're a principal. So it's super, super critical. I think for me, I feel really fortunate that I did get to have that associate principal role. I feel really especially fortunate that I had those roles here at Westwood. If I had come in from somewhere else with the same resume, but a different school name there, I would have lots of experience for sure. I would be, capable and confident to step into the role, but I would have so much to learn and understand, little details of, okay, we call it Orange Day, we call it White Day, just the little things that make Westwood Westwood. I would have to learn all of that, on top of everything else. So it's exciting to me that I have that really firm foundation of understanding of how Westwood works. What are our areas that we know are always successful and strong? What are our areas that, maybe especially coming out of COVID that we say, hey, we need to reinvigorate this. I know where I can plug myself in and start having an impact sooner versus later, just by nature of having already been here. Big question. Yeah. Well, this first year, I think, vision you kind of have to take in little increments. For me, if I was to first talk big and then dial it back in, I have like a big goal for faculty, a big goal for families, and a big goal for students. And so big goal for students is I want when you guys leave here, I want our students to feel like there's no better place that they would have wanted to get their high school diploma, right? And that whatever step comes after high school, whether that's college, military, career, trade school, right into the workforce, whatever it is, I want all of our students to feel like they were prepared for that step. And I feel confident in, that goal being achievable. It's already something we achieve, absolutely most of the time, because for me, that was my experience, and I know when I went through high school, and that was before you guys were born, but I went to college and felt like college was easy because I was so well prepared from Westwood. And I know from even my peers at the time that was the case for so many. So that's, for our students, I want them to have that feeling. But then moreover, I want for our students to feel like when they grow up, if they choose to have a family and have kids, that they would feel like, man, I hope I can move back to that area and send my kids to Westwood. There's no better place I'd want to send my own kids, right? For parents and families, kind of adjacent to that, of course, I want them to feel like their kids receive the best education they could, but I want our families, parents, guardians, everyone who supports our students to feel like Westwood is a place that they're welcome, that it's a place that they feel like they have a partnership with the school, whether that's with teachers, the administration, the counseling team, that they know that, hey, this is a place where it's a home away from home for my kid, and if I step through the doors here to come into the main office, even if it's to, deliver a lunch or something, that they feel like it's a welcoming environment for them as well. And then for teachers, my goal is that this is a place, and for faculty, I should say at large, right, including everybody, I want Westwood to be the place where they want to retire from. Education's a hard career. Not every person who enters education stays in education. We can look at all kinds of statistics of that, right? Especially right now coming out of pandemic, we see a lot of people leaving education. So by and large, my hugest goal is, we want to keep our educators in education, and we want them to say, I'm going to be an educator at Westwood until I can retire. I don't want to teach anywhere else. Westwood's the place to be. So then dialing it back, right? Like I said, you got to take it increments at a time for this next school year, because that's what's most important. When you start a new leadership role, you have to really think about how are you going to start moving on that journey. To me, this year is you're going to see a lot of me wanting to listen and hear from all of those people, from students, from parents, from faculty, right? To help me reach those goals. So it's about me saying, here's what I want to accomplish. Now you guys tell me, how do we get that done? What are the areas that you want to say, oh my gosh, Ms. Campbell, this is so important. We've been doing this forever. We have to always do this, right? And then what are the areas that we say, man, we hate that we do this, or we wish we could do this. We need to be able to have a lot of opportunities for people to give me that feedback. That's a lot of what year one is going to be, is that just input gathering to see, what are some things that are urgent that we should do right now, but what are some things that we need to start planning towards so that we can get to that long-term goal. Nothing that's super tangible. I think the biggest thing, it's really just the total wellness of everybody who's here, our faculty and our students, just the wellness of us. And again, we can't have this conversation without obviously addressing the fact that the impact of the last 2 school years has been tremendous, right? On everybody, students especially. And last school year, I don't know how you guys felt, but I think as faculty, we felt like, okay, we're coming out of what was just this crazy year with all the virtual learning, and we felt like we were going back to normal. And we had this expectation that things were going to feel exactly like they did in 2019. And they didn't, right? And we kind of, I think, took for granted that what we had been through was, traumatic for so many and just life-altering. And it wasn't a switch we could flip back, right? So for me, coming into the school year, I'd like to think that we're all a little bit wiser to say, hey, we don't have expectations that this is going to look anything like 2019 or anything like 2021. This is going to look how it's going to look. So again, going back to that listening, my biggest goal is to make sure I can do that early enough to hear from students especially. I'm in touch with faculty. A lot of us work in the summer, and I've already started having those conversations, but just I want more opportunities to talk to students to find out what is it that you guys are needing to feel like you're in a stable place again. That's to me my number one goal. We ended last school year, I think we had a little bit of some rockiness right? In, what was it, like April, where we kind of did that hard reset of flex that I know was wildly popular. And we kind of tried to put some stability and some, order back in place where things were kind of off the rails a little bit. So I want to make sure that we're starting with stability. So what's hard is if we get too far off the rails and we have to yank everybody back. I think that was pretty jarring for everybody. And so I want to avoid that. So hopefully having enough opportunities to hear from students very, very early will help with that, so that the year goes smoothly. So that'd be my short-term goal. How can we get through this year with everyone returning to or maintaining a place of just wellness and happiness, and not letting anything get off the rails to where we have to yank it back and cause everyone to feel like things are turned upside down. I think it's just good for us to continue to give each other grace. Student to student, student to teacher, teacher to student, parent to teacher, all the relationships and cross paths that we have as different parts of this Westwood puzzle. To me, giving each other grace is huge. And I think there was moments last year where we weren't always able to give that to each other. And that's, to me, where the friction happened, most often. So I think just recognizing that we've all been through crazy times that are unprecedented for all of us, and recognizing that we're all in this together. We're all in education. I mean, you guys are here because you have to be, but by and large, Westwood students invest in learning, and they come to school each day because they really want to learn. I believe that firmly. And our teachers, my gosh, our teachers come here because they love teaching and they are passionate about kids learning. And so we've got to return to that core of our why, of why we're here, and part of our vision as a faculty is to transform lives for the betterment of society. And so it's us being able to really make sure we're holding true to that. So in terms of like things we're going to maintain, right? Maintaining our vision, staying true to that, and taking a step back, I want to, with our faculty, really evaluate our vision and say, hey, are there practices that we're doing right now that don't match our vision? Or is there part of our vision that we're not living? Are there things that aren't manifesting that we need to do a better job of? That to me is important, but in terms of what are we keeping, to me, keeping our vision, keeping the direction we're going, structures and things that matter for you guys. There's nothing in my plans to say, we're going to change block schedule, or we're going to change flex, or, flip the bell schedule around, nothing wild like that. Because again, part of what is important to me, going back to that wellness concept, what we all need right now is things that are reliable and stable. You think about last school year, and one of the reasons why I think it caught us off guard is we had, all those variants, and we had kind of these big explosions of COVID cases, at the beginning of the year with Delta, and then in January with Omicron. And we kind of felt like we were hitting our rhythm and we knew what we were doing, and then that kind of dropped on our heads. So I don't want to come in. It's hard when a school has a new leader, a new principal. And when Dr. Costa announced he was leaving, I think the whole community felt this sense of unease and uncertainty. And so my hope is that in these initial months, I can provide that sense of confidence and calm, and that everyone feels like, okay, we're just rocking and rolling. We know what to predict and expect, and that everyone feels like they can take care of what they need to take care of because they have that stability provided. It's interesting because this pandemic has been hard to predict. And I think if you would have asked that question July of 2021, we would have said, nope, everything's going to be normal and everybody gets out at 4:20. And we, at this point last year, didn't know that Delta was about to come raging. So I don't know that I can answer that perfectly, because I can't predict what's going to happen a month from now, or a month and a half from now, I guess. But there isn't anything already in my mind that I'm like, we've got to fix that. I think for now, we're excited about some things in August, like Fishbowl. We didn't get to do a normal fishbowl last year, and certainly didn't the year before that, right? So we're returning to what is our traditional model of fishbowl, which includes having a school dance and a pep rally, and having the event indoors. So we're really excited about, I don't know if you want to consider that a change. It's not really a change if you were to dial back history pre-pandemic, but it's being able to turn back on maybe some of the traditional structures that we weren't quite ready to do yet last year. That's for sure in the short term what is on my agenda and what I'm excited about. So flex is an important one for me. And when I came to Westwood in 2017, I had been an administrator at a high school in Austin ISD. So I was an AP over there first. And one of my big projects over there was actually starting and running their flex program. So when I came to Westwood, it was right when we were getting ready to launch that here. We were kind of in a year of research and talking with students and teachers, and we actually traveled and visited other high schools during their flex periods to observe and kind of learn from people that were doing it. So it was perfect timing, and it was a project I was really excited to get to develop here at Westwood, and we did it in such a cool way because we involved so much input from students and from teachers to really build the model. And it's not the same model that I used at my previous school. There's a lot of things about it structurally that are different, the way that we have the home base, and you have kind of your schedule that you can follow. If you don't choose to flex out, that's a different feature. So in those early days, we rolled flex out in fall of 2019, and during that first semester and a half, we were really keeping frequent touch points with our teacher flex committee and with students to say, okay, what's working, what's not working. We were making tweaks and adjustments, and this was a really new system for our campus, and so we were in that mindset of this is our pilot year. We're going to figure out how to make it perfectly fit, right? And then of course we all went home in March, and then the school year that was largely virtual, we didn't really have flex, and then we came back this year, we just kind of turned it back on where it was. And so coming back this year, I want to be able to again talk with students and talk with teachers and figure out, are we getting our bang for our buck out of flex? Does everybody feel like it's meeting the needs? By and large, anecdotally, I feel like there's widespread support of flex. I can point to the example of April and how upset people were when they lost the freedom of flex. So just using that one point, I can say, okay, I think our community feels passionately about keeping flex around, right? But I want us to be able to look back, and even the early days of instilling flex here, and say, okay, what was our mission of flex? What was our mission statement? What were the goals and reasons why we said we need this? Because Westwood existed for decades without flex, right? Students achieved very high accolades without flex, right? So someone could very easily come in and say, well, flex is not essential because kids have been doing school here since the dawn of time without it. However, we know that there was a really sound set of reasons as to why we put flex in place. And so we need to return to that and say, are we meeting that with the system that we have? So, no plans to halt it, to throw it out, for sure. It's here, but I think there's opportunity to improve on it and to make sure that everyone feels like it's successful in meeting their needs. I think just starting the year strong with the expectations that, and Westwood is such a special place. And that's, again, going back to your, I think, first question of why I was inspired to go for this position. The student body here, and you guys are in it, so you may not see it, but you guys are so uniquely special. And something I've always loved about being at Westwood is there is this collective sense of responsibility that I feel like our student body has, that, hey, this isn't a special school, like you value being here, and you see, how much this school gives to you, and there's this sense almost like to protect that, amongst your peers. And so I want us to start the year with that being something that we talk about explicitly, whether that's, how we normally kind of lock into flex for like the first couple of weeks. And generally we have our teachers cover some certain topics. Maybe we're going to talk about, hey, here's our safety procedures, or we just even teach students, here's how to use the flex system. We kind of have those tutorial days of just some structures of Westwood, or sometimes we've had a 9th grade assembly, a 10th grade assembly, that kind of thing. Really in those early days, resetting that culture here that really was established by the students of, this is our school. We don't graffiti the walls because we love our school. We protect our school. Would you graffiti the walls of your bedroom, of the brick of your house at home, no. So we treat our school the same way. I think just getting ourselves back to that collective ownership again, but that's not something I can just do, and that's the critical thing in a leadership role. And as the principal, I can have a million great ideas and think, this will be great, or kids will love this, but it will all fall flat on its face if I don't actually have the input and the buy-in from students. So it kind of goes back to that. I need those opportunities to engage with students early on, to get feedback, to hear from you guys. What do you think is going to help improve the problem? But to me, it's not tangible. It's just kind of that philosophical sense of I want our students to feel like we return to that collective of this is our school. We value it. We hold each other accountable when, others aren't. That's where I want us to return to. Westwood as a physical campus has changed tremendously since I was a student here. If we were to walk on a tour together, I would be pointing out left and right, this used to be the cafeteria, this used to be the small gym, and now it's the cafeteria. The physical layout of the building is different, which is actually really cool for me, because when I can think back on my own high school experience, it almost exists in this alternate world, because the halls look different. I can say that used to be my English classroom and now it's the textbook room, so that's kind of fun. The fondest memories that stick out to me, if I think things through, so I was a sun dancer when I was here. And so those, of course, were a lot of my predominant memories, just getting to perform at football games and Escapade and all those times, to build those relationships with a group of people who had that common interest. That was super special. I also was involved I was on the yearbook staff, so I have really fond memories of, kind of after school work sessions leading up to deadlines, and I did theater, and I was more on the humanities side, I guess, of my time here. So the extracurricular stuff for sure was huge, but I also think back on my classroom experiences, and to me, one of the things that stands out if I'm thinking through my time in the classroom, it's the times that I got to collaborate and work with my peers and produce something together. If it was some kind of group project, some kind of presentation, anytime that I was really getting to interact and work with others, which I think is probably telling in what I do now. I've chosen a career path that involves a tremendous amount of collaboration and communication with others, so that probably speaks to why that was impactful for me. But I think Westwood really cultivated my leadership, in those classroom opportunities, but, pointing to Sundancers, I was able to be a leader in that organization. And that was really the first time I stepped into a leadership role when I was, 17 years old, a senior in high school. And that was what I think really started to grow my confidence toward knowing that this was a path that I wanted to take and to be in that leadership capacity. There's a lot. It's cool right now because, we work all summer. We get a couple weeks off. And so I just came back on, the other day from my 2-week break. And every day I wake up and I'm so excited to come to work because there is so much that I'm excited about. But I think if I had to pick one for you, it's getting to form relationships with students again, because I've kind of talked you through what it looks like to be an assistant principal where you're working with students more, and then the associate principal role, I really didn't have a lot of natural intersections with students. So in the principal role now, I will have many more opportunities to engage with students, to sit down like this and get to have conversations and get to really, learn about different people it's not just the whole student body. I'm going to get to know faces, I'm going to know names again, and that truly is my number one thing that I'm most excited about.
That's all. Thank you so much.
Yay, my pleasure.